Elon Musk recently had a Twitter Spaces about launching XAI, his new AI company, and he mentioned something which stuck to my head, which is he said that he predicts an electricity shortage in the next coming years. I want to talk about this. I also had the chance to listen to an interview with the CEO of E.ON, a large German utility, and he spoke about the need for flexibility instead of capacity. And third, I want to also sort of prelude a meeting that I'm having in about a week, and that is a PG&E summit in, I think it's San Ramon, California, where Elon Musk will be present, PG&E, largest North Cal utility. Why are these things all tied together in one episode? Well, it's about shortage, capacity, and flexibility. I think those are the big words. These are all, of course, each one of them warrants its own podcast in the sense that we can ask ourselves, why are we going to have a shortage? And then we can ask ourselves, okay, what does it mean to have capacity? And then what does it mean to have flexibility? I think the solution is flexibility. And that's also going to be my conversation, hopefully, with Musk at the PG&E conference. This is a Not Even Wrong podcast. It's July 17th, 2023. This is Krim Delco. It's a Monday morning here in Europe. The markets are still closed in New York. So there are no movements other than pre-market stuff, which is not very relevant at this time of the day. So let's just focus on the yearly numbers. For the year, we're up 141.8%. The market's up 17.2%. We're outperforming by 124.6%. In this particular episode, I want to discuss three things. One is Elon Musk's comment on the potential shortage of electricity coming up and why that is the case. The second, I want to talk about capacity, and third, about flexibility of electricity supply. Now, let's start with the question, okay, why are we even talking about electricity? Well, because in order to have a decarbonized energy infrastructure, we want to do it with electricity. Okay, so this is an assumption that I think it makes sense because we have electricity. It's a very powerful tool to create things such as motors, to move stuff, to cool stuff. That's just legacy. We could argue, well, why don't we do magnets? Why don't we do, something else? Obviously, this is a much deeper conversation than this particular episode allows. So we'll just leave it at electricity helps us to decarbonize the energy infrastructure because of two things. Electricity is very flexible in the source of energy and in the application. In other words, we can generate electricity from all kinds of sources in a very flexible way, which is a very good thing. And we can also use that stuff for, again, we can cool things, we can drive cars with it, we can use elevators. So we can do a lot more things with electricity as opposed to, for example, oil, which is the source of oil is oil. I mean, hydrocarbons are hydrocarbons. You can't produce oil with wind and so on and so forth. That's just pretty complicated. And then you can also only use it for certain things. I mean, you can certainly transform stuff from oil to electricity. You can use gas, of course, make electricity, and then have more flexible uses of gas molecules, which is what we're doing in a lot of economies in the world. However, again, I think electricity just makes a lot of sense. Decarbonizing energy through electricity is the path forward. The Plan 3.0 by Tesla presented last year was also about decarbonizing the global energy infrastructure through electrification of the economy. So we agree with that. We don't want to discuss this point further. So then the question, of course, comes up, okay, how can we provide this electricity? Elon Musk predicts a shortage of electricity, and he predicts the shortage based on AI and transportation two of the largest demand sources of electricity. I think we have to focus as a society on the demand side, because for a long time we didn't have that problem. In other words, we were able to produce enormous amounts of electricity, and the demand was fairly stagnant. It kind of was growing with population growth, and then slowly even that was offset through efficiency gains. In other words, in Western economies, around pretty much any industrial country in the world has this luxury problem, or has had, or I don't know what the exact grammar usage is, but what I'm trying to say here is that we were in a situation for decades where electricity was just there. It was air, water, those sort of things. And Elon Musk is predicting now that that's going to change, because he's seeing uses for electricity that are massively, massively overtaking what has been going on. And, if you had to explain this to a 5-year-old, I think it wouldn't be too hard. We have a lot of cars that use electricity, while prior they didn't. So we have a lot of massive physical things that need energy, and they were using hydrocarbons before, and now they're using electricity. And then we also have the AI side of things, and like a lot of people in the compute world are trying to optimize for power, because power is becoming a constraint on two fronts. One is money, and the other is also on feasibility. In other words, you can't build systems that generate so much power, or use so much power, because they overheat, and then bit flips and all kinds of stuff starts happening. In other words, you have a very hard time maintaining consistency in a computational system with extreme power usage. So you want to optimize your computer architecture for power use. No matter where you look, the big users of electricity are incredibly focused on optimizing the use of this electricity, because they think it's going to be constrained. If we look at the markets, they are of course all over the world, but that has also, all over the place, and that's driven by mainly the Russian invasion into the Ukraine, which has created a massive havoc in the energy market. So if we put that aside, we can say that the markets are probably still okay. In other words, in terms of demand and supply, this demand surge that is predicted by Elon Musk is not really happening yet. But of course, that can change within, very quickly. And I want to start using an analogy now in this conversation, which is the analogy of compute. The reason I'm doing that is because I think compute can give us a nice roadmap of how electricity is going to evolve. When we had compute prior to the internet, we had whatever we had. I think back then it was called client-server compute. People were doing mainly transactions, accounting, and commerce, and Walmart was probably a good, or the biggest example and best example of how compute, storage, memory, and networking was used prior to the internet. You had these massively distributed proprietary systems that helped companies like Walmart grow. Walmart is, if you think about it, the sort of Amazon 0.5, which is it's a massively distributed system of inventory and supply chain management. And then Amazon comes along, does the same thing, but adds to that the distributed system of compute, the distributed system of delivery, and things along those lines. I mean, distributed, much more distributed than what actually Walmart was. But anyway, the point being, when the internet takes over, we have this massive increase in demand for compute and networking capacity. And then we have things like the Victoria's Secret fashion show, I think, was one of those pivotal moments that showed us that we can't cope with the upcoming demand of internet traffic. We have Reed Hastings at Netflix, starting Netflix with the vision of doing broadband entertainment at some point, waiting for that to happen. That ends